Well, there. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is John C. Morley, serial entrepreneur, coming at you tonight on this Friday evening, January 21st. And for those of you that are new, well, welcome. Every single night, pretty much, I have a series that goes on for about a week, and I have a specific topic that I talk about. And each night I get a little more specific with things that are important about that master topic. For those of you that are coming back, well, welcome back, my fellow friends and colleagues and associates. We are talking this week about how to deal with a liar. And tonight is the grand finale of this series of how to deal with a liar. Now, don't worry, there'll be another series tomorrow, but it is the end of how to deal with a liar. We've talked about a lot of things that are really important. If you missed it, go back and check that out. If you've ever had a problem with a liar in your life, go ahead and show me some love on Facebook, John C. Morley, serial entrepreneur, a Facebook page, my LinkedIn profile page, John C. Morley, serial entrepreneur, YouTube page, my Twitch page, Twitter, or Twitch page, or Periscope page. Go ahead and show me some love. Be so grateful for that. Likes, thumbs up, curious marks, whatever platform it is, be appreciative of that. And why don't you comment below? What challenge have you ever had with somebody lying to you, or did you lie to somebody maybe to save face? You don't have to give me all the details, but share as much as you feel comfortable with. And then go ahead and tag your friends, your colleagues, and your associates, and share this out with everyone you know after the cast. All right, let's get right into this. My next, I guess, part of inspiration is actually going to come from something based upon a true story. Again, I'm going to leave the names of the innocent and guilty out of the stream for privacy reasons and security. There was a gentleman that I knew several years ago, and he was friends with somebody, or he thought he was friends with somebody, I should say. And I knew them in passing because they were neighbors of mine at the time. And so this one person was extremely friendly, was nice, and all that. And the reason I want to say that, you've got something in my eye here, I apologize. When you go live, this is the thing sometimes, you get things in your eye or you happen to trip up on things. So what I was saying is that this person, one person was extremely nice, and the other person, well, they weren't nice. And so the one person had this egotistical, power-driven center. I'm sure you know who I mean. Basically, that they're better than everyone, and people are not important to this person. All they care about is money, and the only time they care about a person is if they're making them money. All right. Now, when we think about this, it seems pretty straightforward. There's the classic protagonist, the person that's basically going to be the one that dominates. But in this case, it was a little different. So they became friends. And after they became friends, this person decided to, after they became really great friends, I think it was almost 6 months or a year, this person decided to, I'm going to tell you, lie about their particular behavior. Now, what does that mean? Well, we talked about lying and how that can hurt the person. It can hurt people around you and their circumstances and their reputation. But what we didn't talk about is, how about if somebody lies, not only to the person, but to other people, specifically authorities like the police, law enforcement. And so, first of all, I have to ask, why would somebody do this? And this is what I had asked my friend. I'm going to call him Tom for a minute, and I'll call the other person Peter. And Peter was the one that had this real strong ego, worked in the financial industry. Again, nothing wrong with that, but the person was a little younger than him, and I think he really needed to grow up, this one gentleman. And so what was going on, it was pretty interesting, because he was being nothing but nice to this person. They were just friends. And this other person decided to go down to the police department, okay, and file a report, a complaint against this innocent bystander, somebody that was basically kind, generous, and would basically give you the shirt off their back. And so he went down to the police department. And when he went down there, he basically told them that this neighbor of his is bothering him and there's not much they can do. And they came back basically, I'm sure, and told him that there's nothing we can do about it. There's no threat for life or safety or anything like that. So he went away kind of with his head between his legs and wasn't sure what to do. I remember he had a few bucks, so he decided to hire a lawyer. And what he did was he exploited power by using money to do that and hiring a lawyer to fabricate a story. That's right. I said fabricate a story. Then what he wound up doing is he went to the lawyer and the lawyer fabricated the story of basically what was going on. And he told person that this is what you need to do to get this person in trouble. And he says, well, the only way you're going to get this person out of your life, if they're really that much of a pain or if they're bothering you, you're going to need to do this. And the lawyer even told him that this may not be the right thing. He said, yeah, no, it's okay. And he went down to the police department and he had to make a statement. And he made a statement that the person that he's complaining about was harassing him. Now, the lawyer said that that's not going to be enough. So he had to go a step further, but he was kind of, like taking little baby steps because he didn't want to go all the way right away. And he said, the person's harassing me and they're stalking me. And, the officer, I'm sure, kind of paused. And he wrote this statement up. And I'm going to tell you, within a couple days, again, the person doesn't live near me anymore, neither of them. But he got a horrible phone call from the police department. And they actually said something that I thought was quite cruel because I knew this person a little bit, the one that he was complaining about, and he was a nice neighbor. He wouldn't harm a fly. And he got a call, and he says, actually, it was from the police, and they called him and said, we have a warrant for your arrest. He just went into oblivion. He's like, what did I do? Why? I didn't do anything. I don't understand. And so, again, I'm hearing the story third hand from my neighbor that's no longer here, either of them, and the neighbor, again, that was being victimized. And the police officer said to him, do you know such and such? He says, yes, I know him. We're neighbors. They live close to us. Well, he's filed a complaint against you, a criminal complaint for stalking and harassment. Now, you see, this person wasn't smart when it came to law, so that's why he hired this person to kind of tell him what he needed to do to put the pieces in motion, which he did, and he lied to the police officer. But you see, they have to take your word for what you say, because there's been cases and issues where they don't, and then they have problems, and then the police department and they get sued. So what happened was my neighbor got a phone call, and he's calling his attorney to find out what went on, and his attorney was no use. So he wasn't trying to let's say, get around this or try to avoid from the police. He says, I'm out of town. I'll be back shortly. I'm not, hiding from you. I'll be happy to come in and whatever you have to do. So he comes back the next day and he told me the story. He goes to the police department and they arrest him. Now, not the kind of arrest where you think they put handcuffs on him, because it wasn't that way, but arrest is a term that the police officers use. And so he was under arrest. And he didn't know what he did, and he asked, and they said, you're being, arrested and going to be charged with this. And he just didn't know what to say. And he said to the police officer, I didn't do anything, but maybe I should file a counter claim against him. Oh, no, 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 you can't do that. And my poor neighbor was going through hell in a handbasket for over a year. Um, it got so to the point where when because they let him out of jail literally within, I'm going to say, a couple hours. He wasn't even put into a cell. He was arrested, but then he was put on bail. He wasn't a flight risk or anything like that. And so again, it wasn't like you think, criminal like in that terms, but they were trying to convict him of a stalking and harassment. Because see, the lawyer knew that that's the only way that they could actually take this person out. There was no way, because anything else would not be a threat to life or anything like that. Because again, they were friends. No, but there wasn't any relationship. It was another gentleman, and they were just friends. And so obviously he went home, and I remember talking to him, and every day I talked to him, he would take a walk, and I could just see the frustration and disappointment, sadness, and I don't want to say anger, but um, the feeling of being hated, or somebody stabbing you in the back. And when he got out of the police department, they told him, there's been a restraining order placed um, on you against this person, and you can't go within so many feet. I think it was 500 feet or whatever. And this was absolutely absurd. But why I bring this up to you is that, you see, when people lie, they do this for a reason. Now, this person lied because of something they were trying to hide. Now, all that's not important at the moment. What's important is the fact that the person wasn't truthful with the other. They never did anything wrong to each other. Nobody was disrespectful. But if the person didn't want them to be friends, all they had to do was say, hey, I don't want to be your friend anymore. That's it. But they decided to take the high road, at least they thought, hire an attorney, fabricate up a story, and then the attorney basically told them how to put the pieces in play to enact this movement. Well, what got interesting is that I'm going to say about 6 months in, more documents were going back and forth. I know that they were actually literally like in contact with the prosecutor's office, and they were getting calls. Basically, I could say my neighbor was getting calls for doing nothing. He parked outside. He got a phone call. He got a warning. In fact, actually, it went all the way up to Superior Court, which was absolutely nonsensical. Because again, they saw my neighbor as a threat to them, and this is how they perceived it: that they shouldn't be on the street, that they were dangerous, and all stuff. So they went all up to Superior Court. In fact, it went all the way up there, and my friend's neighbor, he didn't show up. And they're asking, how do you plead? And he's like, I plead not guilty. And when they went over everything and what happened, the judge basically was ready to say this is dismissed. So the first time you go, they don't do anything. And then the second time he came back, he said, the judge was ready to dismiss it. So the first time came and everything went through. Now the second time came and the judge was about to dismiss it. And so that day, I don't know, they claimed that he was, that my neighbor was tailgating this other neighbor and stalking him at work and all kinds of things, which was all nonsense, because the judge was ready to throw this out. That got back to the prosecutor, and now suddenly somebody called in, and now this case, instead of it getting thrown out, it gets brought back to, let's say, the local town level, the municipal level. And so this little lie happened. But then what happened, ladies and gentlemen, is after those 6 months, there was more agony of my neighbor, that, he was just taking long walks. I could see him outside. He was just really displeased with life. And he was so frustrated, and he didn't know what to do about anything. Here's an innocent man that did nothing wrong. And because of somebody's words that came out of their lips, he might not have a life anymore that he can enjoy. So he was doing everything he could to try to defend his honor, but he didn't even know he had an attorney who was horrible, he told me. And finally, they went to court locally a couple times. The other person came, and it was just they waste a lot of time in court, go back, forth, back, forth, back, forth. And, nothing really happened. It just kept going back and forth, and it was just a lot of anger by the other party that placed the thing, because it was nonsense. And remember, the way they did this, it was the state versus my neighbor. So this other person that was victimizing him kind of was out of the loop because of the way they did it. It was very creative, and this is all done because of the attorney advised how this worked, and he wouldn't have had to pay for legal services because the state was going to go after him as a criminal because of stalking and harassment. So the state would get involved, and he wouldn't have to do anything because the state would pursue him. Well, now what happened is a month or two went by, and my neighbor started to get a little calmer, and he noticed the attorneys were doing nothing, and he said, he went down to the municipal building. He's like, this is so unfair. How do I do something? And the lady, you should file a counterclaim. This is what, because again, he told me the whole story. And I said, yeah, you should do that. And so he files the counterclaim. And I'm going to say within a day or so, that counterclaim got into the court system, and it got mailed to my neighbor's neighbor who was attempting to victimize him. And he knew that he got it because when he got it, the neighbor was very loud and angry and slamming doors and all kinds of stuff around. And there was a court date set for the next week. But the first thing that happened before that court date is my neighbor, who had to go file this, had to go before the court and basically make his case to why he wanted to do this. That had to happen before they mailed the letter, I understand. And so the judge basically told him, from what he has said to me, is that he's going to honor this. This is nonsense, and he says, I apologize because I don't want to waste the court's time. Remember, I didn't start this. So the judge apparently granted him his wish, which was to send a counter complaint. And he says, can I have a restraining order as well? And he says, no. He says, when there's a restraining order in place, the other party has to stay clear of you as well. So it's not one-sided, it's two-sided. And so, like I said, within those few days, the neighbor was trying to victimize him, got the information, really pissed off. And my neighbor's neighbor, who actually had this attorney, he was even more livid because he didn't involve the attorney on the paperwork. He did it all himself. So the attorney looked like a jack ass, as you probably imagine, because he didn't consult him or do anything. Because remember, he wasn't helping him, at least that he could think. But when they came back to the court, and now he's there, and this matter's up, the attorney's like, he doesn't know what the blank's going on. And so they come before the court, and they say that there is a matter up, and he says, are you aware that there's a complaint being brought against you? And he says, and he's starting getting all like, kindergartenish and seventh grade like, and just, teenager like, and just trying to, have that attitude. And you can't do that with a judge. And so what happened was very interesting, because the judge said to him, are you going to hire a lawyer? And he says, no. He says, why should I hire a lawyer? He says, the state's going after my neighbor. And he says, on the contrary, that's not correct. You see, when your neighbor filed a counterclaim against you, the state's no longer interested in the matter, feeling that it's probably just a civil dispute, and the state has decided to pull out of the case. So he's pissed because now he has to hire an attorney. Well, they come back another couple weeks or a month because they just delay time. And when they came back this time, he asks if he hired an attorney, and he gave him all kinds of excuses. And he says, "Look, sir," he says, "I'm going to ask you one more time. Did you hire an attorney?" And they kept saying, "Well, he was busy. He couldn't get back to me." So he didn't hire an attorney. My neighbor went into, I guess you'll call it, arbitration meeting. And remember, they were not allowed to talk or be near each other. But at this meeting, he raised his hand. He said, "Is it okay if I speak?" Because then they said yes. Because nobody was. I said, "Well, since no one else is doing anything here," he said, "I would like to speak." So they said, "Fine." And the prosecutor and the other people were just sitting there. And he says, "Look, I understand what we probably have here. We have a little bit of a miscommunication. And for whatever reason, some facts might have gotten twisted. And so, communication is a two-way street. And I'm willing to take some blame that things maybe didn't go the way that it was expected. We are blocking you again. I think you don't realize that X-rated content here, Mr. LF, is blocked on our channel. We have no interest in any type of X-rated or content that you provide. You are not welcome on our channel." And so, getting back to this, he's talking, and he says there's a miscommunication. He says, "I'm willing to drop all the charges against him if he will do the same for me." And so within a few moments, there was an agreement. They get back to the court, and the judge says, "Are you going to drop your charges?" "No, I'm not dropping anything until they drop their charges." And he says, "Well, that's what that means." So he was just so, like I said, he just had such of an attitude, he told me, that it was just rude. It was arrogant. Remember, he started this whole thing. And now he's getting a little pissed that he can't just turn it off as simple as he turned it on. So this one lie costed my neighbor, forget about the person who victimized him because he probably deserved to be wasted of his time, but it cost my neighbor that's no longer here anymore to go through almost a year of hell. They started, I think he told me, around January of one year, and it didn't end until just before Thanksgiving that same year. That's a long time. And the thing I want to share with you is that, you see, that lie that was said, you might think it's something to be powerful. You might think it's cool because you can do what you want. But, the court doesn't think that's very funny. And if you use the court to, let's say, fight your battles when it's not really a legal matter, that's going to become a problem, and you're going to become, let's say, someone that's going to have a record for abusing the court and submitting false records. So this false statement that was made was a lie. And why I say it's not, I should say why it's important to not lie is it wasted this person's life. It put them through all kinds of agony for months. I know after talking to him, he told me he was going to soup kitchens. He didn't even want to eat some nights. He couldn't do his job. And he was fearful to even breathe, like even close, fearing that he might show up. So this lie really costed my neighbor this big challenge. And when I think it became real is when my neighbor filed that counterclaim. And now that person realized that they were about to get their just desserts, which was a boomerang coming right back at them. And he suddenly understood that if that case did not get dismissed and didn't go the way that it should, because now there's a counterclaim, it could be a permanent record on his file, and it could cause him termination of his job. So we don't realize, I guess, sometimes what a lie can do, but it's more than just hurting feelings. It can implicate all kinds of unnecessary legal services and costs. People lie because they don't want to face the truth. But when it harms another person, I've told you this, or it wastes other people's time, and this was going to go to a jury and a trial for nothing, for absolutely nothing. So I hope that you all can understand that lying, my friends, is not the way to live your life. If you're going to lie, and it's not for that safety reason, like I told you, let's say somebody's home alone and they're trying to just have protection, don't lie. Because not only are you going to have to tell 5 or 10 more lies to be able to get out of that lie later on, but there are going to be consequences. They could be financial. They could be reputational. They might even be health related. And are you ready? Hello there, Bungie. How are you? So we're talking about lying tonight as our topic, and how lying can get people into so much trouble. We've had an entire week of how to deal with a liar. And tonight I'm sharing a very touching story from a neighbor of mine that was victimized by another neighbor who's not here anymore. And he literally just hired a lawyer to help him fabricate a story because this neighbor was not willing to face the truth. He went to the courts and to the police department and told them that this neighbor friend of mine was stalking him, was harassing him. It made him feel great and all that. I think people in life, thanks so much. I think the problem in life is sometimes people want power, okay? And there's nothing wrong with power, but you have to realize power has consequences, right? Just like if we put too much power, what they call overdrive in a radio. I'm also a ham radio amateur operator. You can cause the radio to blow out, right? Damage components. And I feel that most people don't understand what a lie can do to someone, their life, their family, their reputation, until they're in the thick of it. You see, what my neighbor was telling me is, John, he was all upset, not my neighbor so much, but the person that victimized him, that he couldn't just like pull the plug and take it out of the court. Because you see, it was in the state's hands. And he had reported him as being a criminal, of being someone that shouldn't be on the streets. And now they were taking their just action. But as they were doing their inspections and they were doing their analysis, they're realizing that my neighbor friend, who's not here anymore, really wasn't a bad guy. And doesn't always come out in the wash in the court, but I'm so happy that my friend was able to take that right step. So what I want to share with you is if somebody is, let's say, victimizing you, or if you're in a precarious situation where you feel that there might be a problem, I don't tell you to go to the police department and file a restraining. I don't tell you to do that unless there's a safety issue. But what I do tell you to do is go there and file a report, even if you never use it, just so it's on file. Why do I say that? Because if my neighbor friend would have done that and this person that victimized him went down there would have been a report on file. And now that would have been there before this hit. And that wouldn't have stuck so well. So you have to remember something else. The police, a lot of times, don't make arrests. They follow the orders of the court. So if you find yourself in a challenge, maybe you're with a neighbor or somebody that you feel is just, I don't know, they're very touch and go, and you're afraid because they don't seem to be upfront with you. And I don't mean upfront like, they're not being nice to you. I mean that they're a kind of person, 360. They make comments like you're stalking you. They make comments like, I'm going to get a protective order, a restraining order against you. When somebody says stuff like that, don't fool around. Go to the police department, file a report, protect, CYA your butt, okay? That's what has to happen. And the last part of this I want to share with you is that my neighbor friend was at that court proceeding, and at the end of that court proceeding, he walked out, but he wanted to shake the neighbor friend's hand and say, no hard feelings. It was just miscommunication. He just avoided him like the plague. I thought that was just absolutely terrible. But one thing he did do, there was another gentleman there to the left. And he told me as he walked out, he shook that gentleman's hand and he says, Mr. Such and such, I don't know what happened. I'm sorry if there's any miscommunication. There was never any intent to harm or hurt your son. And I don't know what went through his mind. And he says, I don't know either. But all I know, if he ever does this again with an innocent person and they don't deserve it, I may just disown him. Now, I don't think he really meant that, but I know he was probably going to get a yelling at because he brought his whole family into this. He brought lies in about the fact that his mother couldn't breathe during the day because she was so worried, hyperventilating. Okay, we don't take spam here, guys, so we're going to block you if you're trying to push links. We are going to put you into a timeout. Jeff just saw that as one of our moderators. So, Rowena, we don't take that here. I'm very sorry. We have a very strict policy of what can be said in the chat, even though it's not shown to the screen. We just don't tolerate spam. We have a zero tolerance here for spam. And so when he shook his hand and he says, to my friend, I don't know either. And I'm sorry. And I'm just glad that we're able to resolve this before the holidays. That's very, very kind of you. So we're almost done. And I'm going to wrap up in a minute, but I invite you, Bungie, to come back and, watch many of the other series. We have so many other great things on the John C. Morley Serial Entrepreneur channels and groups. But we'll have another stream tomorrow. Have yourself a great night, Bungie. And we will definitely keep bringing great content. So tonight is the last night of this. So you can understand that saying something, maybe it's saying something just so you get a better deal or a better price. Thanks so much, Bungie. That lie could have consequences that, again, could be monetary, could be health-related, could be loss of friendships, loss of relationships, but loss of trust, loss of integrity as a person. And I think when somebody is appearing huffy and puffy, like they don't like people, my personal opinion of that, with being certified, beside being just an engineer and a serial entrepreneur, I'm also a certified hypnosis person and also a neurolinguistic programming and a graduate of the Silva method. I believe that person has something to hide. I believe maybe they need to grow up, and I believe they're not able to communicate. Maybe they're not able to be who they really are in life. Maybe they just don't know what to do. And you might say, well, John, they're doing it out of protection. No, that's wrong. Remember, these people were very good friends. There was never any ill will toward anybody. They hung out. There was never any ill will. But something changed. And my neighbor doesn't know what. They just hung out. They just played pool. They did different things. But something changed. And the way that person lied to my neighbor friend, I thought was despicable. And my level of respect for that person for doing that, not very high. I hope someday that other person that victimized my neighbor friend, again, they're both not even around me anymore, will not only think about what they did, but maybe come back and apologize. I know that's probably not going to happen, but I just can't believe what that person put my just do a simple complaint, because if he did a simple complaint, you know what happened? They would have just thrown it out and it would have went absolutely nowhere. That's pretty terrible. So, do you understand now how serious and how much trouble somebody can get into just for lying? Let's talk about somebody who's maybe doing an audit, and let's say you know what they see the audit and they see a problem, but they say everything's fine because they just want to finish up. But that audit could maybe hurt that um, accounting firm, but it could come back to penalize the owner of that business. And maybe it was something that was accidental, but he suddenly just said everything's okay. So the next time that you are going to even think about lying, if it doesn't have anything for your protection, and again, I mean protection, serious protection. I mean people like a stranger. Okay, that's what I mean. You might say that this whole case was brought on for protection, but it wasn't. It was brought on because somebody was a coward. Somebody was not able to say, hey, I don't want to be friends anymore. They're both adults. One was a little bit younger than the other. And I guess I just hope that if they're out there watching and maybe listening to this, that maybe they'll apologize to each other someday. I can hope, but I don't think that's going to happen. I have had so much pleasure sharing with you the world of liars and what you need to do when you get in front of them. Remember, it's not a blame game. It is understanding communication, because sometimes people communicate and they communicate wrong by mistake. And if that happens, okay, we're human, right? But if it's intentional, like going to, again, not just the police department, but literally taking this all the way up to Superior Court. So this person, just to let you know, to do a restraining order, they can't just go to the police department and get that. They have to literally go find a judge, wake a judge, and get them. I am John C. Morley, serial entrepreneur. It has been a great privilege, pleasure, and honor to be with you this evening. I trust that you'll share this out with all your friends, colleagues, and associates. And go to my YouTube channel, John space C space MORLEY space serial entrepreneur. Look for the key phrase, help keep our content free, and make the choice tonight and buy my team and I a cup of coffee. We'll be so grateful for those pennies, those dollars. We'll invest into new hardware, new technology, new equipment, new software, new facilities, and even new staff to give you the most jaw-dropping, motivational, inspirational, positive content for your life to allow you to become a better version of yourself and everyone else in it. So the next time you're going to open up your mouth, let's share the truth. And the next time you're going to file a report, make sure it's the truth, it's the facts, and not something you're trying to do because of something you think happened. File a report that is exactly what happened. And I'll say this again, the truth will set you free. It's not overrated. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, I am John C. Morley, serial entrepreneur. I wish you a great evening and a wonderful morning. We'll be back tomorrow with another great series for the week, but you'll have to wait tomorrow to see what that's going to be. And just remember, you have a choice in life. Don't lie. Tell the truth. It'll build your reputation. Have a good one, everyone.